Ronald the Rules Lawyer, and my coverage of the Pathfinder Remaster continues. It drops November 15th. It's a new edition, I'm calling it, but an incremental edition. I've been calling it 2.1. In my series so far, I found that about 98% of it is the same, but there's a couple of big universal changes. One of them is the removal of alignment. It's been replaced by a set of systems that I think are done well. However, they could have been explained better, and I'm going to try to fill the gap with this video. Here are the videos I plan to do to cover the remaster. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about the next video. Also, support my Patreon. It allows me to continue this channel. You also get exclusive access to videos, including my 3.5-hour recording of going through the Player Core and GM Core remaster books, and also me running Pathfinder 2e for D&D YouTubers. You also get early access to many of my videos. So alignment is gone, and many people are going to shed a tear. Alignment existed with the original D&D. It originally was just lawful versus chaotic, but eventually the good axis was added as well, putting morality with all of its complexity into 9 neat boxes, and also the source of many grids like this on the internet. So many. It also is the basis for the cosmology for the D&D universe, with the outer planes arrayed according to their positions on the alignment grid. However, alignment was a source of argument at many tables. And with Wizards of the Coast at the beginning of this year publishing derivative, not just rules, but lore from the D&D universe, a risky prospect to base your entire business model on, the people at Paizo decided to remove it in this new edition. What we have replacing it, to an extent, is the conflict between holy and unholy. It's something that religiously oriented classes, like the cleric in the book that's coming out, can voluntarily pledge into. Holy is associated with benevolence and virtue, while unholy is associated with cruelty and sin, which to us sounds a lot like good and evil. If you're wondering where lawful and chaotic went, they're gone. There are no mechanics for them. What that means for monsters in the bestiary, Paizo says that some monsters will have edicts and anathema to guide their actions instead. Meanwhile, I found the new rules that were explained to us in different streams and previews a bit confusing to grok. Like, I understood what was being told to me, but I didn't feel like I fully grasped it. The system strikes me as well done and flexible, but I think it could have been explained better, kind of like the stealth and visibility rules are in Pathfinder 2. So I made this video partly to educate viewers and also as an exercise for myself, so I could straighten things out in my own head. Now, I'll give you a preview of what I eventually came up with to organize the ideas in my head. And you'll see I also address the vitality versus void dichotomy as well, life versus unlife, which is different, not the same. Okay, so let's kind of begin with what we have currently in Pathfinder 2e, which has not only alignment, but also alignment damage. In addition to piercing, bludgeoning, and slashing damage, you can do chaotic, evil, good, or lawful damage. However, this damage could only affect creatures of the opposite alignment. So casting Divine Lance was all fine and good if you were only facing creatures of opposite alignment. However, often you would encounter a creature that you aimed at that did not have the correct alignment for you to damage. Throwing alignment damage was basically an all or nothing proposition. We've gone from all or nothing to some or more. Divine Lance now does spirit damage, which affects nearly every creature in the game. And as we'll see soon, this spell can gain the holy or unholy trait. And in conversion guidelines that Paizo put out, they made clear that alignment damage can readily be converted to spirit damage in the remaster. So that is the place that spirit damage has in the system. But what is spirit damage, really? It is damage to the spiritual essence of a creature. That means it can damage a creature who is possessing another creature because their essence is inside that other creature's body. And the possessed creature would not be harmed by the spirit damage. So it's this intangible, non-physical essence. Spirit damage does not harm creatures that have no spirit, such as constructs. In the glossary, we get a little more language. It says, spirit creatures often lack a material form. So ghosts can be affected by spirit damage for sure from what we're reading. However, this rules lawyers then ask the question, can this affect a mindless undead creature? Do those have a spirit? It seemed like the answer was yes, but I wanted to make sure. And I think the answer is yes, and I'll show you what I found. First, we've had books come out that show what Pathfinder calls the 4 essences, and we see here that spirit is one of them. Mind is different from spirit. So something can have a spirit, but not have the coherence of a mind. Then our authoritative source on the undead is the Book of the Dead. That rulebook had the following language. It reads in a way that all undead have souls. Those that are mindless have a faint echo of a soul. In the Advanced Player's Guide, the Duskwalker Versatile Heritage has an ancestry feat, Life Sense, that lets you sense life force. You sense the life force within living creatures and its counterforce that animates the undead. So this is sensing something, and it doesn't care whether they're mindless. Exhibit D in the player core book that's coming out, we have this spell, Spirit Link, where you transfer some of your life force, some of your health to another creature. And it says, since this effect does not involve vitality or void energy, Spirit Link works even if you or the target is undead. And it is called Spirit Link. And in the glossary, the undead trait describes these creatures as having been affected by soul-corrupting, unholy magic. So they've been corrupted, but there's a soul there. By the way, that word unholy should probably not be there. It makes me mad. Finally, the ritual Create Undead has a critical failure effect where the undead soul, which is there, is tortured and attacks you. And this ritual, of course, can create mindless undead. As you can see, I went overboard to prove my case, but I wanted to make sure it was right for this video. However, I am troubled by the fact that spirit damage says that constructs have no spirit, because there are some instances in Pathfinder where a soul can be in an object. There's a monster, in fact, called the Soulbound Doll, which is a construct, but has a gem inside it that has a soul. The doll can be destroyed while the gem is intact. However, this does raise questions. I leave this for further discussion. Alright, so let's get to holy and unholy. So unlike alignment, unlike good and evil, being holy and unholy is uncommon. You have to be strongly devoted to the cause, or your essence needs to be tied to powerful magical forces. In the player core book, clerics are the only class that can sanctify themselves, which is the process to become holy or unholy. Some deities or gods allow you to sanctify, others require you to. They have different policies. Gorham, the god of battle, doesn't care whether you sanctify, and if you choose to, you can be either. Lamashtu, the mother of monsters, meanwhile, says that if you sanctify, you must be unholy. On the other hand, Iomedae, the god of justice and valor, requires you to sanctify and be holy. By sanctifying, you sign up for the Holy War, a phrase I've stolen from Undeniably Good Time. If you sanctify as holy, you can make effects that are holy and are particularly effective against unholy creatures. On the other hand, they can make unholy effects that are particularly effective against you. Note that by sanctifying as a holy cleric, you do not gain a damage weakness to the opposite. Some monsters, however, may get such a weakness. We likely will see that in the monster core that comes out in the spring. But there's more than one way for the type of an effect or attack to matter, as we'll soon see. Let's talk about how things become holy or unholy. First, there are a number of things that are sanctified. That is a trait. If it is sanctified, think of these as missiles. Anyone can use a missile. However, those partisans on either extreme can choose to attach a nuclear warhead that has an extra effect that only affects creatures on the opposite side. Let's take an example, our spell Divine Lance from earlier. Any caster that has access to this spell can attack something and inflict spirit damage to it. However, those who are holy or unholy create a holy version or unholy version of it. Note that these clerics must add the trait to Divine Lance when they cast it. It's not a choice. These two clerics who cast it against each other have no additional effect. However, there are creatures, such as these monsters in the current bestiary, who very likely will have weakness to damage of the opposite type. So as you see, we've gone from an all or nothing situation to almost definitely doing some damage and possibly doing more damage against a select group of creatures. Notably, because of how flexible the trait system is, the holy and unholy traits can be attached to anything. It does not have to be spirit damage. So let's take this feat for the cleric as an example. As a reaction, if the cleric sees an enemy try to attack one of their buds with a magical ability, the cleric can attack them, and it gets the holy or unholy trait. And it's a physical attack, almost certainly. So you can have holy stabbing damage. Another spell, Blessed Boundary, which is the remaster's version of Blade Barrier, does force damage, but it is also sanctified, so it can become a holy or unholy barrier. Also important to understand is that there are some effects that are holy or unholy, but are not sanctified. They're just holy by default, or unholy by default. There are 2 spells in this book that show this: Holy Light, formerly known as Searing Light, and Chilling Darkness. These are missiles that already have their discriminatory nuclear warheads attached. First of all, if you are not sanctified and signed up for the Holy War, you can cast either of these spells. And if you are sanctified, let's say you're a holy cleric, you can cast both of them also. However, this may put you in danger of losing your magical abilities. Under the cleric, it says that casting spells with the unholy trait is almost always anathema to deities who don't allow unholy sanctification. So for the deities we saw earlier, a worshipper of Gorum might be able to cast Chilling Darkness without consequences, but a cleric of Iomedae almost certainly will. We also see that holy and unholy matter not just because they might trigger a damage weakness. Sometimes the text of an effect has that as a condition. So Holy Light says, if the target has the unholy trait, you deal an extra 5d6 spirit damage. And the opposite is true for the Chilling Darkness spell. And note that Holy Light already had the holy trait. So if it were cast against our Baylor demon here, they'd be double hit by bonus spirit damage and a likely weakness to holy damage. And I might have misspoken. I don't know if there is holy or unholy damage per se, and I don't even know if that distinction matters. What we definitely know is that there are effects with the holy or unholy trait. Next, I wanted to address the confusion that there might be mixing all of that stuff up with vitality and void, which take the place of the positive and energy planes from D&D. These are behind the spells heal and harm. They deal with the conflict between life and unlife. The heal spell can heal the living. The harm spell can take life from the living and even steal it. It also can infuse the undead with void energy and heal them. Meanwhile, vitality can harm the undead. And there's this nifty new picture of the cosmology of the planes from Rage of Elements, where we have the universe, and all of the classic outer planes are here. The traditionally evil ones are grouped over here, and the traditionally good ones are over here. These together comprise the universe. Meanwhile, vitality and void are counterposed planes that overlap with the universe. So vitality and void have nothing to do with holy and unholy, the fight between, quote, good and evil. Remember that clerics and druids can cast both of these spells without consequence, and in the case of the cleric, no matter what deity they worship. Pharasma is neutral and in fact forbids her followers from sanctifying themselves. However, she thinks that undead are an abomination that must be destroyed. Meanwhile, traditionally good or holy deities, including the mandatory holy goddess of Iomedae, don't have the same belief. If you're a sanctified cleric, it's possible to make these spells holy or unholy by taking the level 1 feat Divine Castigation. If you do, you're able to deal damage to creatures opposite of you, even if they normally wouldn't be harmed by it. You can add your trait to either heal or harm, and you can deal damage to any creature that is opposite of you, regardless of whether they're living or undead, and regardless of which of these 2 spells you cast. Notably, this is a voluntary addition of a trait, unlike the Sanctify mechanic. Alright, so putting it all together, we have our Vitality versus Void polarity. This is our conflict between life and unlife. And completely separate and apart from that is our conflict between holy and unholy. The vast majority of creatures in the world are not pledged to either side. However, some select few either have those energies in their very being, or they sanctified themselves pursuant to their religious beliefs. those who have made the sacred oath are more able to destroy those on the opposite side, but they also are more vulnerable to the opposite side. There are holy and unholy effects and spells which don't necessarily require that you be holy or unholy to use them. Regardless, they are more devastating against creatures with the opposite trait. Then there are neutral missiles in this holy war, missiles that anybody can use, but they can be used to greater effect by a holy or unholy creature, who, if they use it, must add their trait to it. So that's my explanation of what has replaced alignment in Pathfinder 2e's Remaster. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Also ring the bell to get notified about my next videos in my Remaster coverage and, of course, later videos. Join my Discord if you haven't already. People talk Pathfinder 2e and other gaming, and also play Pathfinder 2e in our drop-in organized play system. And support my Patreon. It allows me to continue this channel, and you get exclusive access to videos, including my 3.5-hour video where I go through the player core and GM core with people from my server, and also full videos of me running Pathfinder 2e for D&D YouTubers who are new to the system. That's it. I've been Ronald the Rules Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.